Hey there, positivity seekers. Welcome to another episode of Incurable Positivity, the podcast where we explore practical ways to shift your thoughts from negative to positive.
I'm April Sabral, and with me is the incredible Angie Costa. Together, we co-authored the award-winning book, Incurable Positivity. And we're here to bring those pages to life in this uplifting podcast.
Absolutely, April. Our mission is simple: to help you think and feel better. Life throws challenges our way, but it's how we respond that makes all the difference. Today, we've got some tactical tips to share with you that can truly transform your mindset.
For more positivity, head to www.incurablepositivity.com. Stay positive, stay inspired. This is Incurable Positivity.
Today I woke up and I was like, it's the celebration of Love Day. So you know what? We're going to talk about self-love and celebrating ourselves today. Right, Angie?
Ooh, yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. It sounds so beautiful, doesn't it? Self-love. It just sounds so flowery and so positive, and yet it is so difficult, isn't it? It's a tough topic to cover and really a tough practice to incorporate and integrate into your life.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it does sound fluffy and flowery. It does, but it's really not. I mean, it can be, but it really takes the deep work and the deep commitment to that work, and that's always the struggle for people, you know, facing that, just facing it and like thinking about what we can do. And there's so many articles you can Google, you know, self-love, what does it mean? How do you do it? What are the benefits of it? And I think at the end of the day, it comes down to a practice that, you know, of taking care of, like, we take care of our families, we take care of our kids, but then do we take care of ourselves? Like, that's the, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think as women, we're such nurturers of everybody else, right? But like we always put ourselves last.
Right.
All right, so I was up this morning doing my meditation as usual, doing my journaling, and then doing a little bit of tooling around on Google and doing some research. And, you know, I wanted to talk about the benefits of self-love, like what it is, the benefits. And I thought I'd start with just a bit of a reading this morning, because I found this really helpful, especially because we're all about positive thinking, right? And positive thoughts and just creating a positive life. So self-love helps us take care of ourselves, lower stress, and strive for success. But it also protects us from negative thoughts, self-sabotaging thoughts, and pushing ourselves too far. It's important to recognize that knowing what to say no to is just as important as learning when to say yes. When we practice self-love, we accept ourselves for who we are and recognize our worth, which has a healthy impact on our self-esteem. Self-love also encourages us to take care of ourselves, both physically and emotionally, and helps us to protect us from outside influences that diminish our self-worth. I think that's so powerful, Angie.
Yeah, that's that last line there, outside forces that diminish our self-worth. There are so many outside forces, and I'm thinking particularly about social media, but there are also maybe people in our lives or, situations, in terms of our career that we take hits on our self-worth because, there's so many standards that we are expected to live up to. And we forget that we are unique and that there's something very valuable and special about who we are outside of the norm or outside of what other people's expectations are about us.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I struggled with self-love. I might be competent and confident in the work that I do and highly skilled in being a coach and a leader. But as an individual, as a person, I grew up as an identical twin, right? Some people know that, some people don't. But like you just said about external forces, comparison is something that really kills our self-esteem. We know that from social media, from comparing ourselves. So I grew up being completely compared to somebody at a very early age and living through comparison and kind of having to live up to that external force. And it's interesting because as much as I loved that experience. I think just having a built-in best friend, there was still some other side effects of it, of just thinking she was prettier or she was smarter, you know, that competitiveness, and also just being compared to all the time by external forces like teachers in school, parents, friends, that would just always compare us. So comparison to me is something that really can kill our self-esteem.
Yeah, it sure can. It sure can. It's so funny. If you've ever been asked the question, "Tell me about yourself," most of us would start with our occupation. Most of us would, because that is how we define ourselves as leaders. Um, Most of the time, we define ourselves by what we do, and that, I think, is a really good clue about where we might be on the continuum, on the spectrum of self love, because we have so much to offer. There is so much about us that is positive, that is beautiful, that is, useful to others, and radiates from us. And yet we do lean a lot on what we do as the definition of ourselves. And maybe a great self love practice would be to think about another way to answer that question. Tell me about yourself, and not say anything about work, or think anything about work, but think about all the other things about you that really just go neglected, that we really don't value as much.
Tell me about yourself. Okay, so I'm going to throw that one back at you. You're going to be like, so Angie Costa, tell me about yourself. If you had to describe yourself without saying what you did, what would you say? Would it be difficult?
I've been working on this for years, and I know we're going to talk about this in a minute, because this is not easy, right? So I've been working on this for years, thinking more about all of the other things that I offer to the world. I'm a lover of words. I love poetry. I love all kinds of literature. I write poetry. I write books, but I love music. I'm a singer. A lot of people don't know that about me, because I don't talk about it very much. But that comes from that lack of love, of comparison to other singers. Well, maybe I'm not as good as this person, and I should have had a Motown recording contract, and all of that. But the truth is that that I love music, and that I produce music that I think is really, really beautiful. And I'm learning to love that side of me a whole lot more. I'm also a painter. So,
Oh, didn't know
right?
that.
Yet another thing. And I find so much expression in these other areas of my life, and learning to not just talk about, well, I'm a mom, or I'm a business owner. All of those are an easy place to run and hide, but to really expose yourself and be a little bit more vulnerable when you talk about who you are, because those are parts of you that you have to learn to love even more.
I love that. I love that you said, talk about who you are, and that you shared that. Also, what you shared about like being a singer and then comparing yourself to other singers, because I think we measure ourselves up to unrealistic expectations that are just put on us a lot of the time, and that's really what will kill our self-love and our self-esteem, which is a whittling way down to lower your confidence, and then not love yourself. And that's why the practices of self-love are so beneficial, because we know the benefits of loving ourselves has an impact on our health, on our well-being, on how we show up, on what we can accomplish, what we can believe we can do. And I believe that each one of us has a mission on this planet, something inside of us to make an impact and step into and have a greater influence. And sometimes that could just be with your family, it could be in your community, it could be leading a business, it could be leading a huge team, it could be writing a book, it could be hosting a live, it could be anything. But when we compare ourselves constantly to unrealistic expectations, then it stops us from stepping in. And that's why the self-love practices are so key to being more whole in what you do. It's funny because this weekend I play the piano. Not a lot of people know that. And I haven't been playing it as much because I've been comparing myself to my 17-year-old self when I was really good. And
Ah.
yeah, because, when I was at school, I did all exams and went through to the highest level and was like a classically trained. And I was with somebody this weekend that has a piano, and I was literally sitting in front of it, and I just didn't want to play it because I was like, I haven't played for so long. And they kept saying, stop avoiding the piano, April, you know how to play it. And just put your fingers on the keyboard. And it was kind of like that. Am I good enough? Am I worthy enough? Am I going to be judged? Am I judging myself? It's all of these things, these negative thoughts that come up, right, when we're put in those moments. So I think that's really important to really kind of journal out who you are versus what you do. I think I'm going to do that after this call today, because you've just inspired me to actually think about that.
We live in a self-improvement culture, April, where it's always about getting better, changing your life. All of these platitudes about living your best life. And we live in such a, you have to grow, you have to change, you have to transform. And all of that is good. I'm not besmirching that, but I think there's a lot of benefit in taking a moment, even a day of your journaling time, your preparation time in the morning, and just talk about what is good, what you have done, what you have accomplished, how far you have come, and not always be striving, because part of self-love is self-acceptance and accepting who you are, embracing who you are versus saying, I need to get better, I need to lose weight, I need to make more money, I need to get a higher position in my company. Again, all of that is good. We have to have goals. We have to be growing. But if you just said, I'm gonna reserve Monday just to love me and embrace who I already am and what I've already done. Wow, can you imagine how that would transform your life if you just loved and liked you more?
Oh gosh, I think I am going to build that into my Monday practice. I absolutely love that. And I 100% agree. Like, I'm in the world, we are, of self development coaching, like many people. And, you can get stuck and wound up in that you're not accomplishing things, and your thoughts can start spiraling down. So it's not about that. It's about continuously accepting yourself, loving yourself, right? And writing out those positive thoughts. I sent some text messages out this morning because it is Valentine's Day and it's a day of celebrating of love. And as much as I don't buy into holidays that much, just myself personally, I know that other people do. And so I wanted to make sure that I got some messages out. And, one of the messages that I sent this morning, and I want to share this because I think this is, important that we do send messages out to people and let them know that we care and love them, because many times, some of our biggest regrets is that we didn't tell somebody how we felt about them. And so as we move into like best practices or things that we can do to continue to build that self-love, this is one of the messages I sent out this morning to my son. Keep dreaming big, son, then keep taking action towards them. Love you. Have a good day. You are worthy of everything you are growing into.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, right. And I can't wait for that, because I think sometimes, like you said, in the world of self-development, growing, accomplishing, achieving, sometimes it's about recognizing who you are, what you have, and then accepting that, and then accepting the journey of growth. Like, self-love is a journey of growth, right? And that journey of growth, and just recognizing that in itself is such a great moment to be proud of and be grateful for and celebrate. So I think that's really important, that we tell people today that, that we're proud of them, and that keep knowing that you're worthy of what you're growing into, because so many people don't know that, Angie.
Oh, it's so true. I think a lot about football because, players are not supposed to do like too much celebration when they reach the end zone. And I've always hated that rule, because I think, here you are on the field, you've got to get through these gigantic obstacles. You're talking about people, 250 pounds, 300 pounds, and you got to break through all of that and run run the yards and make it into the end zone, and then they don't want you to celebrate. And it's like, to me, I think there should be fireworks, and I think there should be confetti, and the band should play every time you reach the end zone. It's such a great thing.
Yeah.
And you think, like, in sales organizations, I haven't been in sales in a long time now, but when I was in sales, we would set these lofty goals, and then we would reach those goals, and we would celebrate for like 1 minute. It would be like, it would be at the start of the meeting, congratulations. Okay, so now here's the new goal. Okay, so now here's the new goal. And I think self-love works that way, where we don't take time to celebrate. And I mean, take time to celebrate. Like, really, really, reward yourself and pamper yourself, and acknowledge what you have already done. I think that's the right springboard to the next goal. Not just, okay, we did it, that's great. What am I striving for? Now what's the next goal?
That really brings me back to when I led retail teams, Angie, like majorly. It was like, you're only as good as today's numbers. And tomorrow's a new day. And there were some great, experiences in that, because you get to start every day new, but also it's like, okay, well, yesterday was done. That's not good enough, like it can compound that feeling. So that's what that takes me back to.
Yeah.
Right. As we move into like some best practices, right, for like self-love, because I think it's always important to think about, the practices that can help us cultivate this more for those, people listening on the podcast. What are some best practices, or some practices that you've practiced over the years, maybe still practice today, in terms of like building that self-esteem, building that self-worth?
So I had a coach once tell me that every time you think a negative thought about yourself, that she instructed me to say 7 positive things out loud. So every thought was counteracted with 7 words or 7 statements about myself. And I think that's really a great way to contemplate your thoughts and be very, very aware of what you're thinking. I used to have a habit of saying, oh, God, I'm so stupid. Why did I do that? I'm so stupid. Well, of course I'm not stupid, right? But we say these things about ourselves. Yeah. And that's an assault on your own spirit, on your own soul, when you make these comments about yourself. And so to immediately acknowledge it and recognize it is a huge step. If you do nothing else, that's tremendous. But to replace that negative thought with an out loud declaration of 7 things that are so great about you, to undo the negative thing that you've now allowed to circulate in your brain.
That's really good. I like that. I mean, that just goes along with a practice that I had implemented and I learned from a coach as well. When I was going through a tough time in my life and I was coming out of a divorce, and, that's something that I felt like was a failure. I wasn't good enough. It didn't work out. And so she said, write down a list of things that you love about yourself and stick it on the wall where you can see it. And, it took me a good 6 weeks to write about 20 things at that point, because I'd never actually practiced that, just being a mom, being a wife, being a leader in business, and having to think about the things that I like about myself. So that was a really good practice. And I wrote them down. And I've used this with other clients as well when I'm coaching. And I literally would just stick it on the wall and just look at it every day. The same thing, right? It's like programming your mind, programming your thoughts, kind of thinking about the things you like. And it can take some time to do that. Like, it's not an easy practice when you start doing this. But even if you are already, let's say your self-love on a 10 is like 1 to 10 and you're at a 8 most days because you've done this work and you feel like you're pretty good about it. I say that you can always get to a 10 to a 12. You can always get to a 15 to a 20. You can always exude it, and you can always pass this on to somebody else, right? So I say, even if, write that list so that you can look at it every day. And I lived with somebody once, a roommate, and she had on her mirror in her bathroom, you are powerful, you can accomplish anything. And so it was something that she looked at every single day. And I'd go in the bathroom and I was like, oh, that's really cool. Writing on your mirror, putting post-its or whatever. But I think that's really important as well. What else? What's another practice? I love this.
Another practice I've tried before, and boy, was this difficult, but I call it mirror time. So, we look in the mirror only to, check our hair, check our makeup, whatever, make sure our clothes are, on point. But have you ever just looked in the mirror to look at yourself? Just strictly for the purpose of looking at yourself. I will tell you, the first time you do it, it is uncomfortable. It's almost as if I said to you, to stare into my eyes and don't speak, just look into my eyes. Imagine how, cringy and difficult that would be for you. It is the same when you're looking in the mirror the first time, strictly for the purpose of looking into your own eyes and just studying your own reflection. It's really, really difficult. But over time, you do gain a certain comfort with yourself. And so many of us are uncomfortable with ourselves. It's why we don't like to be alone with our own thoughts, or, by ourselves, traveling, or, hanging out or whatever, because we feel like we need that distraction from ourselves. So mirror time is a great way to say, I'm at one with myself. I'm at peace with who I am. I'm okay with me. I love that statement. I'm okay with me. I am not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And sometimes when you do this work in positivity, people expect that you are. I am not perfect, but I'm okay with me. I'm doing good. I'm doing great. And I like who I am. And so looking at me is a great way to remind myself that I am okay. I am okay.
I like that. I think, talking about this with you every week, first of all, showing up on a Wednesday and having these conversations is just a good reminder, honestly, to keep up leveling your practices, because I think you can always keep building on. And it's like anything, we fall off the wagon on things. So it's about picking things back up. And at different times in your life, I think you'll need different practices. You'll need to go deep, do deeper work, and at other times maybe not so much, depending on where you're at. But I think it's about the practice and just recognizing that. So I love that mirror work. I think I'm gonna try that again, do a bit more of that. I also think that self-talk is so important, and you've hit on this a couple of times, right? Like 7 positive things, talking to yourself in the mirror, also looking at how you celebrate yourself. And sometimes I think it's really hard when we are not feeling our best and we are having that moment to come up with a positive thing to say. So something I've learned recently is a bridge thought, right? Using bridge thoughts to get you to where you want to be, to think positively, to think highly of yourself. And that is a really easy step. And so one of the ways that I've been practicing recently, Angie, is using this statement, I'm choosing to believe. Right? I'm choosing to believe. So if it's like, I don't know, I as an entrepreneur, it's like ups and downs. It'll be the biggest self-development journey of your life, I think, choosing this path after being a corporate leader for so many years. And sometimes it's like I'm having a vision about something that I want to create in my business, which is dependent on whether I can believe I can do it, right? Which is all comes back to self-worth and self-belief. And sometimes I'll just say, maybe I'm thinking I can't do it, but I'm gonna write out some statements saying I'm choosing to believe that I can, whatever it is. I'm choosing to believe I feel better. I'm choosing to believe I'm a person that experiences happiness every day. I'm choosing to believe that joy is just who I am. Because sometimes it's just hard to make that switch when you're having that moment. So I think I'm choosing to believe is something that I've adopted from a coach that I learned that I think is really, really helpful. I don't know what you think about that, but...
Yeah, that's so good, April. Sometimes I feel like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. It's like the answers to your success and to your joy and your bliss are already inside of you. They're already there. And we search for them externally. And we think that we can get them from other places and other people, especially on Valentine's Day. I mean, there are a lot of people today who are not hooked up, right? They don't have a date tonight. Yeah. And that can set up some negative thought patterns. that can set up some negative thought patterns. But this choosing to believe is about taking control, and it's about saying that the power is already in me. I've already got the answers. I've already got what it takes to be and to do and to have. So looking outside of myself is not the answer. I'm not going to get it from someone else. It needs to come from within me. I think about this all the time because I always share that I was such a negative person. And yet I had all of these positivity belief practices inside of me. They were there, just sort of laying dormant, right? Yeah. I had read the books. I had, gone to the seminars. I had, watched the TED Talks. All of that positivity was there ready to launch, but I didn't because I was always looking outside of myself for something else and not realizing that what's in me is enough. And so when you choose to believe, you activate something within that really does have the power to take you wherever. I mean, in terms of all of your goals. So I love this idea of choosing to believe. It puts the power back where it belongs, which is within you.
I love it. Well, we're coming up on time. It was such a great conversation. I've got some great best practices from you, Angie, that I'm going to up-level my positivity self-love practices. Right? And I think I'm going to do some little rituals today on Valentine's Day because, yes, I'm one of those people that's alone, but I'm not alone because I've got amazing friends and family and a huge network. So I think one of the things I'm going to do is just send out some more messages to some people that I do know are alone, particularly, because I think, like you just hit a nail on the head, that people can feel that a bit more on this day. So that's something I'm definitely going to do. But as we wrap up this wonderful Wednesday conversation, is there anything else that you want to share or add?
I think that's a great challenge, April. If we all take a moment and just spread a little bit of love. You never know where someone is today, what they're experiencing today, what they're thinking, what they're feeling. If we would all just take 3 minutes and just send 5 or 6 messages to people who, we know closely maybe, or, contact someone we met not too long ago and they made an impact, somebody we met on the airplane, and just say, hey, I think you're pretty awesome. I think that would be such a great thing to do today. And I will bet that you're going to hit somebody who really needed to hear that today.
Yeah, wonderful. If you loved this episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave us a review, and head over to incurablepositivity.com where you can get access to lots more resources, the community, and myself and Angie, where we go live with book club and talk about everything positivity. We love you, we appreciate all of you, and until next time, stay positive.